Welcome to the Corner Office, where we bring you the latest news from the world of commercial real estate, the greatest voices in the industry, and the corporate chats you've been missing. Let's get to it.
Today we're going to be talking to Miguel De Figueiredo from Inscape. Inscape is an education business which started in 1981 by Harry Edmonds and Cherry Whitehead. It's really an education business which is focusing on the design side or the design aspect instead of a lot of the traditional space, which is largely business or whatever that might be. We're seeing these guys focus on design, and it's a brilliant business which has been growing. We're seeing campuses across the country, and we brought Miguel in, who's the campus director, to come and talk to us about the growth of Inscape and also what Inscape are doing business differently as a business, and how they look at property specifically and how they choose their campuses. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. No, look, I mean, if we go back to the beginning, I think they had a great idea initially and certainly groundbreaking. So universities, technicons have always been the general direction for anyone coming in to further in their studies, to obviously have a better career. And Inscape was the pioneer really in multidisciplinary design institutions back in 1981. And as they grew, so the years went by and so did the course offerings. I mean, if we look at ourselves today, we've got 4 different higher certificates on offer. We've got 2 diploma courses. We've got 4 separate degrees. We've got a BA in digital marketing and design. We've also got an honors year, the NQF8, and we've also got our advanced diploma in UX. So we've really diversified over the years, and we've got some really exciting qualifications coming, which are now sitting with the accreditation bodies.
And just some of the numbers there. I mean, you've got 1,500 students at the minute. So, that's a significant number of people all studying and all, waiting for your content to come out and trying to get managed. And obviously you're looking after this campus, right?
Yes.
Now, I'd imagine, and sitting there and trying to design and really ideate what you want to create, you don't necessarily want to create the traditional. You also don't want to create something too futuristic where it doesn't embody any format of campus or whatever it is. What's your philosophy for that? I mean, how are you putting this together? When you are looking at a site, what are you thinking?
No, brilliant question, and I like the word ideate. It's actually one of our qualifications, the fastest growing one, which is ideation. So it's quite a big attraction as well. It's probably the first qualification where we started to play around a little bit more in the business side of things when we look at things like design thinking and conceptualization. And I think that's really what we're embodying in the moves that we're making at the moment with, repositioning certain campuses in certain provinces. The addition of our Stellenbosch campus, which I had a big hand to play in. So there we started that 4 years ago. I had 11 students at the beginning. I had a temporary space of 65 square meters. And now we're in a campus with, as it stands right now, just over 260 students 4 years later, in a campus size of 1,550 square meters in the heart of Stellenbosch. So I think that really resonates to the type of courses that we're offering, the groundbreaking courses. We are industry leaders. There's no two ways about it. We are the oldest, but yet our curriculums are very new age.
It's interesting because you're going to put yourself in somewhere like Stellenbosch. And Stellenbosch is effectively a student town, right? You've got a couple of really high-end businesses there, asset managers, etc. But it's a student town at the end of the day, and it's steeped in history, obviously, Stellenbosch University. And you put yourself into that environment. So I think it's a brilliant move because all of a sudden you position yourself in this very much a student town, offering that design element, which is almost it's a bit more creative. Not that Stellenbosch doesn't offer the creative side, because they do, but I think this is a bit more bespoke in looking at the technical side of it. So what differentiates you from Stellenbosch's creative side, architectural design, and that type of thing, to yourselves? How are you differentiating the two campuses and also the businesses?
No, 100%. So the nice thing with Stellenbosch, and the reason for that move, is they are very business focused as a university. So their biggest departments or faculties are engineering as well as the business. They do have a very well-known and highly respected fine arts department as well. And what we've actually seen is quite a beautiful synergy being formed now, where I've got some of my lecturing staff, my part-time lecturers, are actually coming from Stellenbosch University. I've had students from Stellenbosch University, from the engineering departments, come through to our Stellenbosch campus to actually do Autodesk training. So, we're quite proficient. Obviously, being new age and being cutting edge, we are always working with the latest softwares, Adobe, Autodesk, you name it. We're doing it with the students, depending on the variation or the discipline that they're studying. And we're actually creating quite a nice connection with Stellenbosch University. We're currently in discussions with getting the Inscape students to be part of, the start of the year at Stellenbosch University. Maybe not all the fun for any students that may listen to this podcast, but certainly to be engaged with, over that RAG week and so on.
I was at Stellenbosch University, and it's a brilliant week, certainly something that gets you into the spirit of being there, a lot of fun and a lot of friends made at the same time. So
100%.
I think that's a massive part of not only business, but also any educational institution that you go to. It's not only the sort of community, but it's also the network you build for a lifetime, and putting yourself in that bigger environment. I mean, I don't know how many students Stellenbosch has at any one time, but I can imagine a few thousand. Yeah. You suddenly put yourself in an environment where you've got this network and you've got this community for the future. How do you try and generate that inside your business, inside of Inscape? How are you trying to bring people toward one another and create these sort of lasting relationships? How do you sort of create that culture?
No, perfect question. So we've got experienced coordinators stationed at every single campus. So all 5 of them nationally. So whether you're in Pretoria, Midrand, Cape Town, Durban, or Stellenbosch, there will be an experienced coordinator, and their job is really about culture. So whether that be with our staff, we've got quite a big staff complement per campus as well, with the different types of lecturers and the different disciplines that we are teaching. But more so is with the student body. So we've got a SRC, a Student Representative Council at each campus, and they are what I term the good and the bad, in the sense of they bring any concerns to my desk or my colleagues' desks to address with students, but they're also the fun in bringing the fun.
Yeah.
Yes, for lack of better words. And they work very closely with our experienced coordinators. At Inscape, we also have this beautiful document called the Playbook. Yeah. And the playbook is really about that. It's focusing on culture. We have policies, procedures, and all those boring things, but are necessary in business. But the playbook is really about anyone that's coming in that's new, anyone that might forget something. That is your go-to. That is what we're all about. That is about our quality, our authenticity, our relationships, which are our focal points always. Getting our students work ready and life ready, and it's that holistic approach to furthering your studies, where it's not just about the curriculum. I mean, if we know today, in today's world, individuals come to the campuses nationally. Some of them visit 3 of our campuses because they're not too sure where they want to be, what vibe they want. And it's really the teams on the campus are the selling point. It's not the curriculum. The curriculum is phenomenal. It's registered, it's accredited, it ticks every single box that it needs to tick in order for any institution to offer you a good start to your career. But it's really about the passion of the staff.
What is the different vibe in the different campuses? I know this is going to be a difficult question, but what is the different vibe? I mean, Stellenbosch got a student vibe. You're part of the student university, so it's almost you're involved in this whole town, which has thousands and thousands of students. Tell me about the other ones.
Yeah, so luckily, I mean, I've had a long career, as you've mentioned at the beginning. So started with Cape Town campus, then launched Stellies, then ran Cape Town and Stellies simultaneously, until we got people to come in and take over that, or take that off my plate, should I rather say. I also have another role as business development manager for Inscape nationally. So I've been lucky enough to spend time on each campus, and I think the vibe is substantially different yet so similar, which shows that we're doing something right. I think it's really about the servant leadership approach that the company takes right now, where usually it's coming from the top down, but now they're actually listening to people on the ground. The people that are in the trenches, so to speak. Sometimes it is trenches, sometimes it's great. And if I look at Stellenbosch, there's actually a bit more of a, I mean, being the campus director at Stellenbosch, we've also got campus academic managers at each campus that really run the day-to-days with the student body. And I've always termed it, and this is very traditional, that I'm daddy and my cam is mommy, because she's the nurturer and I really step in when things are going in the wrong direction, bring the parents in. But I think in Stellenbosch, it's really a family vibe. And I think the same goes for a lot of the campuses that are coastal, especially, so Cape Town as well, very family oriented, because students come from all around the world, not just all around South Africa to actually study by us. We destination campuses. Pretoria is also very
Where is it?
vibey.
Where is it in Pretoria?
In Menlyn,
Menlyn.
right by Menlyn, mate.
Brilliant,
So
yeah.
beautiful location. Pity Hatfield's gone, because I know that used to be the vibe in the day. But I've spent quite a bit of time there because our head office is also located at
Sure.
Pretoria campus, and it's very energetic. Students are going out all the time. There's a lot of things happening on their campus, where I find at the coastals a lot more happens off our campus. So students go out together, stay and res together, where in a place like Pretoria, and even for that matter Durban, it's a lot of homebodies. So they're living with mom and dad still, not necessarily on their own.
Another thing you mentioned there is you have these student bodies, right? And some days are good, some days are bad. How do you create an environment, and talking to your values, how do you create an environment where it's not a place where you come to moan? I mean, I'm sure you don't want to hear about the issues all the time. You actually want solutions. You know, it's a critical mindset shift that you need to actually engender in the whole sort of grouping that actually puts these things together. If they're there to innovate and ideate, as you said earlier, how do they actually make things better? Do they have their own meetings offsite, or do you guide them? How do you create that culture?
So the approach many years ago was we gave instruction to SRC and they would carry it through. But we very quickly learned that's not an SRC's duty, and they're not going to be passionate about it. So the way that all the campus directors nationally are running it is actually explaining to the SRC, this is what we expect of you, but most importantly, we expect you to lead with the fun. Create those haste dancer at the end of each quarter, whatever the case is. Bring the beer pong onto campus. Just don't overindulge. And it's really a very much a work hard, play hard ethic that we try to instill. So, I mean, again, just speaking to my day-to-days, I don't sit in my office behind my computer screen unless I absolutely have to. We all have deadlines, but I am on the floor, so to speak. I mingle with the students. There's no sir. It's really hard to break some of them because they do come from very traditional households. But by the end of their third year, it's Miguel or Megs, and that's just how we work. So we really try to create an atmosphere or an environment that is not hierarchical by any means, but we're all equal. Respect is not given, it's earned, and that's the way I run everything, whether it be the students, the staff, my lecturing force, and I know the same goes nationally for all the other campus directors, is if we work as a team unit, everything should work well. And yes, there's going to be complaints, and I welcome them. I have open door policy, my colleagues do the same, and it really is, I mean, the students understand, they'll try and push at the beginning and ask for things that are just so far left field. It's never going to happen. Like having classes from 9 to 10 and not having class on this day and that day. It's not really how it works.
It's a business.
It's a business at the end of the day, and lecturers are also only available when they are. But for the most part, I mean, we've got a really happy student body. I do a lot of interviews as well for new students, and I would say over the past 6 months, probably 80% of the students that are coming to at least Stellenbosch campus is word of mouth. We have siblings, we have friends friends of friends, and they are actually our best sales force,
it's
which
a good
speaks a lot.
feather in your cap.
100%.
I want to talk about purely design, because we obviously work in the built environment. We are transactional in the space, so when we're looking for a campus or a facility for the likes of yourselves, what are you thinking about when you're looking at that building? If I think back to most of the educational facilities that I've been to, or educational buildings that I've been to, you can't have too much deep space. You've got to have a fairly narrow channel. You've got to be able to build these classroom environments. And is yours a typical classroom environment, or how do you change that, or are you looking to change that, and what are you trying to build into these things? From the pictures that I've seen, they all look like quite cool, funky type of environments. It looks like an aesthetically pleasing place to go to, which I think is also important. What we've had in commercial property over the last while is people have shifted from this, here's your building, you're lucky to have it, move on, pay me the rent, to how can I turn this into a hospitality situation? What can I offer you in this building? Do we have a coffee shop downstairs? Downstairs, for example, this is an older Sasol building we sit in, and Fairvest came in here and completely renovated it, changed it to this more industrial look, put this coffee shop in downstairs, change the building immediately. From a pretty vacant building, suddenly you've got quite a successful building. What are your sort of top 5 boxes that you're trying to tick to say, this is going to be epic?
So always location is prime priority.
Yeah. And tell me, what is that? What does that mean?
So it used to mean one thing. And then our CEO, Helen Burrs, has recently just completed her MBA at demonstrating a learning organization is the title. And she is actually the spearhead as to the areas that we targeted initially with Galetti at the start of this process, which has been it's been a long journey and a very great journey. And, location in the past, we'd always look for that sort of design, artsy, vibey neighborhood.
Sure.
I mean, for Cape Town campus, for example, we were in Woodstock initially when it was pretty cool. And then we were in Salt River when they were redeveloping pre-COVID. And unfortunately, in both cases, the areas, like with most arty areas, don't always stay to that level. And I think, I know, thanks to the research that was also handed to me, working with Galetti directly as well on behalf of Inscape over this process, was these are the areas we want to look at. These are the areas that are tried and tested. They are not going anywhere. They are upmarket, much like the product that we offer is an upmarket product.
So it needs to gel with your brand.
Exactly, with the brand, the vision, whilst saying all of that is also part of our SDGs of being or having accessible education for all, which we'll get to a little bit later. Price drops that we did over the course of this past year to make it more accessible from a financial standpoint, but also with the campuses is getting a little bit more centrally located. So if I look at the new Durban site that Galetti helped with, if I look at the Cape Town site, every form of transport is there. So no matter where you're coming from or how
people
you
stay
get there.
on the campus all day, or do they?
So what we're seeing is actually at a stage, yes, pre-COVID, people used to sit on the campuses a lot, all day, work with their peers, have fun. It's very vibey. There's coffee shops at some of the campuses. There's loads of coffee shops around. The others that don't have their own. There's obviously uncapped Wi-Fi. All the typical amenities and expectations for this level of education is on site, but it's also the comfort, the design of those campuses really encompass student living in the sense of the space is designed for them. So if I look at our premises, and as I mentioned earlier, I've had a hand in a couple of these, is I've always designed it around the needs of the company in the sense of, okay, we need 10 studios or we need 11 studios, that starting point, and then, okay, I need them to be this square meterage, that many people in each one. And that's pretty much the last part of the technicality. The rest is about how can this flow work for a student? Where can we have pause areas? Where can we create pause areas in different parts of this campus, so that people want to sit in more of a library setup with a librarian working on their research versus those that are a little bit louder than most, and they want to create the vibe, but how can I create a space that won't impact the staff that are maybe sitting in a meeting? So, if I look, again, I'll just use Stellenbosch as an example purely because that's my home ground. We've got a meeting room that is really just for staff to meet with parents, things like that. And then we have a boardroom that's open to anyone outside of the several pause areas. So that's where the SRC holds their meetings. I'll hold my team meetings, and everyone just comes in. There's technology available in those spaces. They can project, they can work things out. I've recently just put up a whole bunch of permanent markers on the campus where the students are doodling. There's nothing worse than a blank canvas, and that's what I designed 4 years ago. And everyone's been so scared to play with it.
Yeah.
Now we're finally getting to that point where, this is what it's about. This is my space. Let me make it my space. Pretoria's got beautiful artwork down one of their staircases. Again, doodles from a student who's actually become a really, really big artist today. So, I think that's also the design of these spaces. Often when they're finished, people are like, sure, it's a little clinical, but they're not seeing the bigger picture.
Yes.
What's coming is that I can design any graphic to go on any wall, but it needs to be the students that do it for the students.
What's quite cool as well to think, 81, what's that?
40.
42. Why calculate? So 42 years, you're going to see people deeply entrenched in the sort of work environment now. You're going to see people having excelled through their careers, people deep into their careers, top professionals in their field. Do those people come back and share with the university? I mean, you've kind of gone straight through. So you've gone from student to student lecturer to campus director. Are you seeing the people come back and interact? Is it a totally different environment? I mean, from 1981 to 2024 must be a totally different thing. But is there an old boys society, as it were, that kind of comes back and shares with the school and contributes to the school? And what do you guys do in that space?
So we do reach out. Obviously, the two parts of my job, the business development, is all about relationship building, creating new partnerships, bringing new people on board. We've had some exciting ones over the past 12 months. But in turn with that is also engaging with the alumni. So luckily, I've had a long journey with Inscape. I've seen a lot of young men and women come and go, and some we've still got really strong relationships with. I mean, I've got alum all over the world, from Australia to Singapore to all parts of Europe, doing exceptionally well. Whenever they're back, we very often meet up for a drink, especially those that I did lecture way back when. I was always known as the sloppy guy because I always had my slip-flops on, being coastal and all. But yeah, I think from that point of view, we do have quite a nice network. We get alumni to actually come back and almost give back in the sense of guest lecturing, doing guest talks, inviting our current students to come and see their companies. Some of them have actually moved into the manufacturing game, doing high-end bespoke furniture or, printing vinyls and things like that. I mean, one's working for a company that does all the taxi association stickers. So, I mean, they also do all the yachts. So it's double. It's two sides to that sword. It's really exciting work as well. But we've also, I've recently just hired a young gentleman, okay, not so young anymore, but I lectured him 12 years ago. He went on to actually further his studies in architecture as well, and he's actually done a full 180 all the way back home, so I say, to my campus now in the role of a full-time lecturer. So we do see a lot of that. We also send out to our networks all the job opportunities that are coming up. So we're quite a well-respected name in the industry, whether that be in graphics or interiors or the built environment or whichever side it is, fashion. And so, even now I've just been chatting with a really big retailer that has reached out. They've got 10 job opportunities available and they're really
incredible,
want
yeah.
staff.
That's what you want, yeah.
So it's really exciting. So we do build that. It is at the forefront. In order to offer quality education, it needs to be the entire part of that, not just what happens in the classroom, but actually
be sustainable, yeah.
100%. At the moment, we're just waiting for the stats for our most recent employability, but up until recently, we were sitting at a 92% employability rate within 3 months of graduation. So we were really proud of that.
Amazing. The stats are great. I look at a lot of, education in the country and where it's going. And of course, some places are more accessible than others. I know that you have different financial plans to make it more accessible. Education's not free, and unfortunately, I think it's such a critical fundamental of society to have education. Yet in our country, sadly, our education is poor, and just to have access to these institutions and to be able to understand the thinking. And I ask about the alumni to come back and to tell their story and what's happened, and to really impart that knowledge back to the students is so critical, because it helps people to learn and to think differently and to start to plan for what their future is going to be. And, now you've got the likes of all these GPTs which are coming out. I'm fascinated to see where this goes in the creative space, because from everything that any interaction that I've had, it will create something. Fundamentally, it is creating something. But it's always quite vanilla.
Yes.
Everything is vanilla. The design's vanilla, the words are vanilla, and you almost want to say to it, use some better words, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So I I'm fascinated to understand where it's going to go. And obviously AI is the whole base load of AI is that it's going to improve and improve and improve. But it's improving from human thought. And so I think the creative side, I get the sort of base load calculation, maybe programming, these kind of things. Yes, it's going to be easier to use a GPT. But now when you come to creativity, it's a whole different space in GPT. How are you starting to think about that? And how are the students starting to think about that? And are there opportunities for the students to try and, trick the system here a little bit? Yes, you're going to get a vanilla project, but it's going to be correct.
Yep. No, you want to be the orange in the vanilla project. So the easiest way of doing that is actually to follow the process. We teach that process. We teach conceptualization. There's a reason it exists. There's a reason we still work with books like D.K. Ching's Ordering Principles of Design, which I think is from the 60s. I stand to be corrected. Sure. But it's still the same process. And unfortunately, AI, yes, we can train it to learn, but you still need the creativity. So if you want vanilla, and we've seen it, trust me, we've seen it already, you can see a mile away when it's been put into an AI. And yes, there's actually highly useful parts of using AI to your
you have to go with it. You must
100%
teach people how to use it,
100%.
I think it can cut out 40% of the, base load. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and I've got some questions on podcasts for you. But I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was the Huberman Lab. So it was Andrew Huberman. He was talking to Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin, obviously a huge producer in the sort of musical space.
Yes.
And he had said to Andrew Huberman, who's writing his book, the best piece of advice I can give you is just to write the first draft. Just get it there. Because after that, improving it, creating and bettering it and adding to is the fun and easy part.
Correct.
It's the writing that first draft. So I think that GPT should just be used for the first draft. Bang out a book for me, and then you go and improve it. And then that's probably the way that it could be used going forward, to go and just get the basics done. No one wants to learn about it. I used to get infuriated that make you do those longhand stuff. I don't know what the purpose of it is, doing calculation and working the formula. Why?
Yeah.
Teach me how to use a calculator. Teach me how to use a spreadsheet. What's the point in this thing? And I understand there must be something, but for my use, definitely not appropriate, There's so many different uses to it. Like Kate was saying now, this recreation of the contents that they're repurposing, and that also makes sense,
Yes.
Another brilliant thing I saw the other day, often we take photographs of a building or a site that we're working on, and of course there's someone who happens to cross the road at just the perfect time, or a truck that's parked outside, or a sign that we don't want to see there. And you can literally just remove it, which I think is brilliant.
iPhone stickers, just put your finger on the person or the object and off you go.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. So that kind of stuff is really phenomenal. And that would take someone using a program hours to go and piece this thing together and make it perfect. And I'm assuming that still the person doing it bit by bit is probably going to do it to a far higher quality level than just me saying delete this person who's standing in front of the house or whatever.
No, that's exactly it. And I think the other side of AI is, there was a lot of blowback, especially from the academia departments at all universities, including our institution. And we've had lots of debates, heated ones, fights, arguments, but you got to embrace it. I mean, change has to be embraced. For our students, using it correctly and teaching them how to use it correctly is actually going to be more proactive than fighting them on using it. It's everywhere. It's on everything. Let's be honest. We're all going to embrace it when it makes our lives easier. And isn't that the point of a computer? Isn't that a point of technology, is to
go faster,
speed up processes, speed up things? I mean, if I look at, just from my personal experience, rendering that could take me up to as long as a week, literally, of just watching this thing render frame by frame by frame using AI now can take you as quick as 30 minutes for the same thing. So there's a lot of benefit in AI as long as people don't use it as a shortcut. It's not a shortcut to create.
I'm assuming it could also take now we're sort of getting into the but I'm assuming it could, you could also take an architectural design and then feed it into the AI and say, run me through where you see problems, or run me through where you see weaknesses, or what is what is the engineer going to pick up now? Because engineers are still going to have to do their calculation. Or maybe, or will they? Maybe you're going to have an engineering AI, you know. But you can still run it through and you say, this is a problem. And you could fix it before you get to that process. And
100%.
And so, again, the speeding up and repurposing. Yeah, so some interesting stuff. Last couple of questions. Run me through this Inscape model. Run me through the model. It's a sort of, what price points are we talking about here for a course annually? To start off with, what sort of range are we working? And I imagine that there's some courses are full-time, some part-time. So, you know, you got to work around the way that people work. But for your full-time courses, what sort of price points are we talking about? And then how do you make it easier for people to access that course? You know, it's not, that kind of money is not necessarily that any student or South Africans just have handy. So how do you make it easier for them to access that course?
No, 100%. And I think
you
that's
own them afterwards. We own your ideas.
No, well, we do have that in there, but no, we don't really. I mean, IP is IP. We take that very serious as well, which is why plagiarism is so heavily enforced on the creative fields. I think more so than in any other industry. But you know, a campus that I haven't mentioned yet, which is our distance campus. So it's virtual learning. We've got quite a few accredited courses there already. We are now about to receive accreditation for 2 more, which are the postgrads. So that's really about creating accessible education for anyone sitting anywhere at a much more reduced rate than contact. So contact, economics, business, practice, it costs to put the lights on. It costs for electricity. It costs for internet and all the rest, the building costs. I mean, we're talking spaces like De Waterkant, Stellenbosch, you know, Durban and Umhlanga, Pretoria and Menlyn, Midrand, I mean, right by Mall of Africa. That's not cheap.
They're not B-grade locations.
They are not B-grade by any means. So that cost has to be covered somewhere. We are private. We are not a public entity, which means we don't have any public funding that comes to the party as well. And that is really the reason why contact in the private sector is more expensive than a public. And that goes for all the privates out there, not just Inscape. We all have bills we need to pay. But with our distance learning, I mean, there's courses on there that are non-accredited, so fundamental courses that are specialized courses that really run sort of a 6-month process at your own pace. There are accredited 1-year higher certificates. There will soon to be accredited honors programs and advanced diplomas in UX, soon to be within probably the time this is released, this podcast soon to be. So very exciting space. We've also applied for further accreditations of other programs to run through there, again to align to those SDGs of quality education, accessible education to everybody from all walks of life. On the contact side of things, another decision that the board made recently, which was around about August last year, I stand to be corrected exact timing, but they actually reduced by a substantial percentage the cost of our higher certificate courses. So where those courses were ranging from about 80 to 90, they were then retailing at about a 50-odd thousand. Is that right, Manunu? Yeah. You might want to cut that.
Yeah, to check
out.
you.
Just double check me there. So, I mean, that's really, really accessible in private education. That's almost unheard of for a qualification that is actually accredited that you can go into.
And when you're saying the cost of that, is that annually?
No, that's for the course, for 1 year for that course.
Got you, yeah.
So we've got diplomas as well, which are also a lot more accessible, a lot more affordable. That is the target direction with those courses.
What's your longest course?
So our longest course would be diplomas and degrees and the BA in digital marketing. Those are all 3-year qualifications, so they're NQF 7 undergrad qualifications. Some students will continue on to a 4th year, which is our honors at NQF 8 level, and then they just really specialize within that specialization already, whether it be graphic or fashion or ideation, interior, whichever direction they're going. Digital marketing as well, real hot seller. There's a big need for it, so it's quite intense there. We do have a little bit more of an expectation on entry requirements, specifically within the fields of mathematics and English, my apologies, purely because of the economics in nature of some of the subjects that they're doing. The tech that they're doing in there is also a little bit more high-end to the standard creative programs that people are learning in the design disciplines. So, yeah, from that side, that's ranging around about 80 to 90 per year. Our most expensive courses, I would say, would be our built environment because of the nature of the course as well. So there, for the degree, you're looking at in the region of about 130 to 140 per year. But it includes all your software, all your stationery, the curriculum, the courses, Wi-Fi, everything. It's complete open course.
And that's a full-time course.
That's a full-time studies. You don't have to go buy Adobe. You don't have to go buy Autodesk. It's all included. So that is why, we've got this pack that's over and above the tuition. And the questions we get from parents are like, "Jeez, are these gold-plated pens and pencils?" It's not about that. It's about the software. Yep. It is very expensive, but we've got to train students in what
in the latest
industry requirements to make them, again, one of our commitments, which is industry ready.
And now, do you have certain people doing these? Let's say they do 2 years, then they do another, they skip a while, they come back and finish their final year. Are there some people doing this part-time, working at the same time as doing this? What sort of dynamics exist in that space?
So in the higher certificates, a lot of working class that are looking to shift or change, specifically our higher certificate in architectural technology. So that is, we are very proud. About a year ago, we got SACAP recognitions. That's the African Council of Architectural Professionals. They have recognized our one-year higher certificates, the first of its kind in South Africa, especially from a private institution. And again, comes back to that relationship building that we have, not just in the industry, but also with the governing bodies of these industries. So that we're actually seeing quite a peak in a more mature student enrolling in those courses because the ability to register with SACAP as they finish. So it's become a real one-year course that can actually give you a long-term industry job. You can go on to become a professional draftsperson, which is a fantastic career. So that's sort of the one side of it that we're seeing. In degree, students do maybe 2% will push pause. It could be many reasons, health reasons. We've had a lot of scares since the likes of COVID have been around. Mental health is, as we know, a worldwide concern and has been since, again, COVID, the schooling years that were lost and that ability to be around your peers over that 2 to 3 year period has really caused some concerns from that point, but we are seeing a huge improvement with that. So that's really been the main cause in recent times. Prior to that, very seldom will we see someone taking a break in a 3-year qualification.
And my last question for you, what sort of interesting podcasts are you listening to, books that have sort of struck you that are really interesting for both yourself as a business leader and just sort of people coming through the network in general? What interests you?
So one of the projects that I lead is sort of focusing on circular economy, the sustainable development goals for the company, what our promises are that we're making. So more of my entrepreneurship focus within that department of things. So I do listen to a lot of podcasts on circular economy, part and members of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So I get access to a lot of really interesting podcasts there. I know my colleagues listen to a lot wider ranges than I do, but I'm also married with 2 kids, happy wife, happy life. And so when I'm not grafting in that, I do generally have my hands full with that. So that's kind of been my focal points is trying to understand that ever changing world of what is sustainability, especially on our shores within our business scope and our model. It's not as cut and paste as if I was running a manufacturing company and really focusing on just waste. It's a lot more complex,
So tell me in a very short framework, what is sustainability in Inscape?
So, the easiest ones to explain would be going paperless, trying not to print things like student cards. In a lot of provinces, we've gone digital and everything. With our students as well, we have focused very heavily on allowing them more digital submissions and presentations as opposed to printing everything, which we used to do, rewind 5 years ago, especially in built environment. You have to draft those plans, those line weights that you come out, graphics, the posters. I mean, pixelation is a swear word in their industry. You cannot afford to do that on any print. So we still have to force print, but we now do it maybe twice a year as opposed to every 3 weeks, which is a huge groundbreaker for us. And it's all been allowed and approved by, the Department of Higher Education and Training, the Council of Higher Education. They back it, which is great to see. As far as our premises are concerned, we've got a huge focus on Green Star rating. So even our older campuses, which are buildings that we are in ownership of, so the Pretoria campus, the Midrand campus, I mean, if anyone was there 5 years ago, goes there today, will probably drive past the campus, they won't recognize it. It's going through the Green Star rating as we speak. The Stellenbosch campus is 5-star green rated. The new De Waterkant site, and every site that we looked at, as you might know as well with Galetti, has all been, do they have a Green Star rating? If they don't, it didn't matter about location, because we cannot teach this to our students and force this in our curriculum if we're not acting this in our day-to-day and as a business.
You gotta live what you preach.
100%.
It's been a fascinating chat, and thanks for coming. It's also, from the research that I've done into Inscape, quite a fascinating institution, and it's one which is really creating this big wedge in all of this traditional learning that we have. It's starting to favor this very design side. My sister has always been very creative and very design side. And I found, years and years and years ago, that there weren't so many institutions which she could go and really expand her knowledge, which is also why I ask about the alumni, because where's the feedback? You have to almost get into industry to start getting this feedback and understanding of the way that the industry works. Yes, you can learn this, but how do you actually practically put that into business? 100%. So I think it's an institution which is really starting to teach people that and to connect the dots between learning something and then what are you actually going to do with that going forward?
Yes.
How do you become business ready?
100%.
And I think, and you can see this in the success of Inscape at the same time, and a lot of attention and detail put into the campuses. It was fantastic working with you guys to put these two together, because a lot of thought goes into it. It's not, that looks nice, let's go there, or that's a good area, let's move in there. A lot of thought goes behind it, and you were saying a long process, but it's an exciting and an interesting learning, a learning point for us. So thank you for that, and it's been brilliant to work with you. And welcome to our office and what we do here. And thanks for coming to join us on the podcast.
No, I appreciate that. And before we wrap up, I'd just also like to extend my thanks. I mean, this process I've gone through many times over in the past, obviously not with Galetti, but it really has been a hit and run experience in the past. So I was quite shocked with the experience I've had. The journey has been long, but Elena from Galetti in the Western Cape has literally been there every step of the way. She's worked overtime with making sure we get the right rates, the contract signed in time, leniency for my designs and my team's designs, leniency for allowing us to work crazy hours on site to reach unrealistic deadlines, which we reached. And I mean, just the negotiations throughout, it was so seamless. So
Brilliant.
Great experience, and hopefully when we move again,
we
we'll
appreciate
use you
that
guys in future. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Awesome.